You ready?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mesfin, thank you for your hospitality. Thank you for having us here in Addis. And because you're the son of Makonnen, who flew Empress Selassie to Jamaica on April 23rd, 1966, and I'm here in the uniform of the Tuskegee Airmen, I'm going to, in his memory and as a sign of our eternal gratitude for him, I'm going to do something. I want to give you this tie as a gift in memory of your father. It has an insignia of the Tuskegee Airmen on it. I'll give this to you.
You're bringing tears to my eyes, and I'm so grateful.
And I'm also going to give you, as a mark of respect that we have, the role that Ethiopian aviation has played in our community, the lapel badge or pin of the East Coast Chapter Tuskegee Airmen, which is the first in history, started by the original airmen in Washington, D.C., with the National Capital Chapter. So, Mesfin.
Thank you so much. This is unexpected. You're always full of surprise.
Well,
you're always full of surprise. Pleasant surprises. My father was so interested in the story that he actually put it in his book. He wanted to make sure. I'm a bit emotional. So he wrote a book. It was named Aviation in Ethiopia.
Yes.
Right? But he wanted to make sure that people really understood where it all started. He spent a lot of time in that book, a lot of pages in that book talk about Julian, talk about Robinson. He has some real details.
So you talked about Hubert Julian, and just for those of you who will be looking at this video, Hubert Julian was born in the 1890s in Trinidad and became an aviator, a parachutist aviator, and came to Ethiopia. And I believe he was present at the coronation of Empress Selassie and parachuted right before the stand where the emperor and his empress were sitting. And of course, later on, John Robinson came to Ethiopia to help set up the Ethiopian Air Force, became a colonel and commander, first commander of the Ethiopian Air Force, and actually died here in Ethiopia in the process. I think the war had ended already of developing Ethiopian Airlines. And so there's a great legacy of African Americans from the United States and African Americans from the Caribbean. Hubert Julian comes to mind, coming to Ethiopia to partner and to return to their homeland and to contribute in the area of aviation science. And what was spectacular is when you told me your father was recruited by the emperor when he was about 15, 16 to be a pilot.
Indeed, you shouldn't be saying that too loud because he actually had to sneak in. 17 was the age, but he just couldn't miss that opportunity, right? So he basically, and then at the end, when he passed on, we had to put on the tombstone a date, and we had a big debate with my family. And we said, you know what, do we do the real one? But at the end of the day, he got into that Air Force because he claimed that he was born in 1932.
Yes, well,
and
look,
that's what we kept in there.
The way I look at it, history will not recall with any sort of repudiation someone who sneaked into school to get an education. Had he done that for devious reasons, it would have been a different story. But he was audacious.
He was audacious.
And so he was seized by the spirit of audacity to educate himself in an area that was, for persons of African descent, still very limited, limited. And Ethiopia was the first black nation in history to have an air force and to have an airline of a kind. And today we're proud to see the quality of service that Ethiopian Airlines now provides to the world, because Ethiopian Airlines now is a global entity. It spans over continents and serves with outstanding quality. So your father and his audacity lives on in that legacy, and I expect for you to join us and for us to recruit and create a chapter here in Ethiopia and continue that exchange, that connectivity. Because it's by that networking of the African diaspora with Africa that we can really redeem the best hopes of our greats like Marcus Muzai, Garvey, Bob Marley, and Nelson Mandela, certainly Emperor Selassie, who came to Jamaica in 1966. Your thoughts, Mesfin, as someone who's you may not be an aviator, but you're a science-based person, you're an IT professional, so you know that matrix that you're creating to bring us together. Your thoughts?
Indeed. So it's always good to keep track of your history. If we don't know our history, it's very difficult for us to head into the future because our history kind of defines and lets us know what is it that has happened before, so that do I have the capacity to actually be bigger in the future? It's when we lose contact with our history, then we start wondering who we are, not realizing our true capacity. I mentioned my father dared to get in there. You know, it's kind of changed history in a way too, because he wasn't just an airman, he wasn't just a pilot. He actually has a huge impact on how he transformed by organizing the pilots so that at the end of the day they have all rights, because it didn't start off like that. Right? So there needed to be some action to make sure that the fate of other airlines in Africa that were started and disappeared was not going to happen to Ethiopia. Right? So to make sure that at the end of the day, once you learn how to do it, you have to take over, you have to take the responsibility. And you know, he was one of the folks that really started that movement, that assured that in very short time, the airlines were quote-unquote Ethiopianized.
Yes.
Right? So that Ethiopians can continue to, I mean, it started in 1946, but many years later, it is one of the largest airlines. And it just didn't happen by
accident. Yes. And I think if we can take a note from the story of Makonnen Berry, Captain Makonnen Berry, Mesfin's father, Ethiopian Airlines is where it is because of what he just said, the indigenization of competence, right? So they created a flight academy so they could train their pilots at the highest level. It was not whimsical, it was institutionalized, structured. They also did something that I've since learned by my study of aviation science, which is so important: ground school.
Yes.
What I understand, for every one pilot in the air, there are about 10 people on the ground in meteorological science, in air traffic control, in airframe and power plant maintenance. So if you don't have that apparatus of maintenance, right, then you risk a lot of, aerial accidents and critical critical function failures, right? And that's what leads to a lot of times loss of public confidence in the airline. Loss of public confidence in the airline leads to drop off in customers, and drop off in customers leads to the demise of the...
There's also loss of profitability because now you have to outsource that service.
Yes.
Outsourcing that service means depending on somebody else to do that maintenance for you.
Yes.
Right? At a higher cost most of the time.
That's right.
So really, I mean, it's just about building that competence and not only just kind of keeping it to the country.
Yes.
We can go all over Africa. We're going to find a lot of pilots that were trained here.
Yes.
That actually ended up being bigger than just pilots.
Pilots and mechanics.
And mechanics. Kind of, so it, you said something about that concept of the matrix, you brought it in on that, I was trying to say, okay, why can't we do that with IT, for instance, with information technology? Make it so that we create the competence, right? And then have that competence wherever it is,
on the
plug
cloud.
into the cloud, and let it contribute, right? Contribute to what needs, there's a lot of, quote unquote, labor shortage.
Yes.
That America and Europe is suffering from. Yes. Why can we not create a situation so that the cloud allows you that? Right?
Yes.
I don't need to be in the US. I'm sitting in Addis.
I've
done all of my work that I need to do. I'm able to access. I'm able to actually have a huge impact. Why can we not give the competencies so that folks that are here in Africa, and now you give me also an idea, why shouldn't I expand it to the Caribbean?
I think, based on this conversation here, something is forming in Mesfin's mind, certainly mind, of how that matrix can benefit that Ethiopian Airlines legacy.
Right.
In how do you proliferate that competence using the cloud, right? So we don't want to say too much,
yes,
but I think
you can see where this is going.
Picture, yes, I can absolutely see where it's going. And
so
let us continue being critical thinkers, innovative, yes, audacious, as your father was, to gotten in at that early age.
Yes.
And let's continue to work in this memory.
Indeed, my pleasure.
Pleasure's mine.
You're an amazing man. Thank you
Well,
very
you're
much.
talking about yourself again, but that's all right. Makonnen, Barry, father of Mesfin, Makonnen. God bless your dad, God bless Ethiopian Airlines, and the legacy of Hubert Julian and John Robinson, Brown Condo.
And God bless your child, whom you name Makonnen.
That's correct. You know, listen, my son was named Makonnen, not because of Makonnen Berry, but Ras Makonnen of Ottawa, but it all comes together. It all comes together. And he's a member of the Tuskegee as well.
Fantastic.
So thank you very much again and for continuing your father's legacy.
My pleasure.
Thank you, sir.